So we're here in the Eagle and Child, which was a favourite pub of Tolkien's and the other Inklings, which used to meet in the 30s and 40s. Tolkien would have drank beer here. They used to meet regularly, and it was a loose form of, a loose grouping of academics and interested literary scholars. But most notably, it was because here where Lewis and Tolkien read extracts from their books, their fantasy books, and were critiqued by the other members of the Inklings. Tolkien's works are often viewed a bit oddly by people because they're seen as simple escapist literature. But I think against that you have to say, well, they've sold 150 million copies worldwide. There's an enormous franchise in film, so they have to be taken quite seriously. And I think there was a real reaction in the late 60s for and against Tolkien. There was the real counterculture hippie movement, which really embraced the Lord of the Rings and Middle-earth. But then there were other people who said, this really isn't modern literature. How can we be reading books about elves and dwarves and hobbits when really we should be engaging in things like the Vietnam War and what was happening there? So there was a real split at the time, and that's reflected in the film. So there's a copy of the film on YouTube, which has been up there illegally, and then the BBC put a version up. It's about 26 minutes long, and it was made in 1968, went out on BBC Two, and was rapidly forgotten, but then reappeared once in 1973, the day after Tolkien's death. And since then, Tolkien scholars and fans have been watching this film because it has 7 minutes of interview with Professor Tolkien himself. The idea for the documentary came when I met Leslie McGahey, the director of the original film. And when I was talking to him about the making of it, he said, "Oh, you may be interested, but I found some extra footage in my attic, the offcuts from those days." And we know that they filmed Tolkien for at least 2 hours, but only 7 minutes actually made it into the final broadcast. So putting it all together, we found about an hour and a half of unseen or unheard material interviewing with Tolkien from those days. It's a very well-known film because it contains a famous scene where he says how he wrote the first line of The Hobbit when he was marking exam papers, and he just says he came across a blank sheet and wrote, "In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit." From the interviews you see in the film, he seems a very sort of like intelligent gentleman, quite humorous, quite jolly, quite serious about his subject. One interesting insight into The Lord of the Rings is a scene when Gollum is beginning to turn into the good character, but Sam intervenes incorrectly, and he stops Gollum becoming this sort of more hobbit-like person. And Tolkien says that's a really powerful moment for him because it's where he portrayed good, trying to do good, but actually leading to evil. They had some other footage where they just sat him down with a jug, a pitcher of beer and a glass, and of course he kept drinking it, so they had to keep filling it up, or he's sitting smoking his pipe and so on, which they thought captured the Oxford academic. And then the final shot is quite poignant in a way. He's standing on the wall in Merton College on the battlements. There's a tower there with some seating, and they'd arranged for a helicopter shot. So this helicopter takes off from Christchurch Meadows, and he's just left standing on this battlement as it soars off over Oxford. When people hear the documentary, they will hear there, I think, a lot more of Tolkien the man. He will really come across as a very kind, amusing, intelligent person. We'll get a lot of that. We'll get a few insights into his real thoughts, which might contradict some current thinking, and also a couple of insights into his book as well.